students, this is 11th class biology, lecture 4 of chapter 5, morphology in flowering plants. Topics to be discussed today are types of flower on the basis of position of ovary. Okay, on the basis of position of ovary, we will discuss the types of flower and also parts of flower. So let's discuss first about the types of flower. So based on the position of calyx, corolla and androecium, these are parts of flower in respect of the ovary, that is part of gynoecium. Okay, on the thalamus, the part of flower, thalamus. So the position of these different parts on the thalamus with respect to ovary. On the basis of that, flowers are described as these three types. Okay, so first is hypogynous flower, second is perigynous flower, and third is epigynous flower. So you can say these are three types of flower based on the position of ovary with respect to other floral roles, and those other floral roles are calyx, corolla and androecium, right? So let's start with the first, hypogynous flower. What are hypogynous flowers? See here. In the hypogynous flower, the gynoecium occupies the highest position. Means gynoecium means ovary occupies the highest position while the other parts are situated below it. Okay, you see here in this flower, this is a hypogynous flower. Okay, you see this is ovary part. Okay, this is style and this is stigma. So this is complete, you can say this is complete gynoecium part, and this is ovary. So see the position of ovary here. This ovary position is highest. Okay, and all other parts like this androecium, okay, this is anther and filament, the complete, we can say this is androecium. Okay, so this androecium, these petals means corolla, and these sepals means calyx. So androecium, calyx and corolla all are present below the ovary. So in such situation, the ovary is such flowers is said to be superior because it is highest in position. Okay, it is present above all these other roles, right? So we can say that ovary is superior, and such type of flower is called hypogynous flower, right? Hypogynous. Hypo means below, gynous means gynoecium, means all other floral roles are below the gynoecium, right, are below the ovary. So such flowers are called hypogynous flowers, and ovary in such flowers is superior ovary. And example is mustard. In mustard, mustard flower is a hypogynous flower, means superior ovary is found in mustard flower. Next type of flower is perigynous flower. In perigynous flower, gynoecium is situated in the center, and other parts of the flower like calyx, corolla and androecium are located on the rim of thalamus almost at the same level. Okay, so here all the parts are at same level. But what is the difference? Gynoecium is present in the center, right? See here in this diagram, in this flower, here you see this is the gynoecium. Okay, this is style, stigma and ovary, right? So this ovary is present in the center, and other parts like these are androecium, corolla and calyx, these are present on the rim of thalamus. This is thalamus part. Okay, this part is thalamus, and this thalamus is making this shape, and this, you can say this is rim of thalamus, and these other parts are present on the rim of thalamus almost at the equal position. Okay, almost these are situated at the same level. Okay, that's why we cannot say that ovary is superior. Okay, so such type of flower are called perigynous flower, and ovary here is said to be half inferior. Okay, because ovary is not superior here, it is half inferior, because half part of the ovary, you can say here, you can see here, is below the level of these parts. Okay, the level is this. Okay, so half part of ovary is at the same level, you can see, and half part of ovary is below this level. That's why this ovary is called half inferior ovary. And example of such a flower is plum. The next type of flower is epigynous flower, and here the margin of thalamus grows upward, closing the ovary completely. You see here in the diagram, this is the ovary, okay, and this is the thalamus part. This one is the thalamus part, and this thalamus part is completely enclosing the ovary, okay. So thalamus grows upward and closing the ovary completely, right, and getting fused with it. So thalamus has fused with the ovary part and closing it. The other parts of the flower arise above the ovary. Now because thalamus has covered the ovary completely, now other parts will arise here. Okay, you see here, this is the closing portion of the thalamus. So these parts are arising here, and all these parts are above the ovary. These are androecium, calyx and corolla part, okay. All these are above the ovary. So because ovary is at the lower position with respect to all these other parts, right? So ovary is said to be inferior, right, because it is at lower position. That's why it is called inferior ovary. And example of such flowers are of guava flower. In guava flower, epigynous guava flowers are called epigynous flowers, and in those flowers inferior type of ovary is found, right? Now next topic is parts of a flower. Each flower normally has 4 floral rolls, and these are calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium, right? Now let's start with the calyx. The calyx is the outermost roll of the flower, and the members are called sepals. So outermost roll of the flower is called calyx, that is protective in nature, right? What is the function of calyx? That is protective in nature, that protects the inner parts of the flower, okay. And each member of the calyx is called sepal. So combinedly all the sepals are called the green leaf-like structure of the flower. Those are called sepals, and combinedly all those sepals are called calyx, right? The calyx may be gamosepalous when sepals are united, okay. In some flowers sepals are united, are joined with each other, okay. So in such condition these are called gamosepalous, or polysepalous when sepals are free, and the flowers in which sepals are free, those will be called polysepalous, right? So polysepalous term is used for the calyx when the sepals are free, and gamosepalous word is used for the calyx when sepals are united, right? Next part of the flower is corolla. Now a corolla is composed of petals, so all the petals combinedly are called corolla. Petals are usually brightly colored, okay. And what is the function of the petals? Like why these petals have bright colors? To attract insects for the pollination. So main function of corolla is to help in pollination of flower, and that's why their color is bright, to attract the insects towards the flower, right? If the petals are free, likewise here in case of sepals, sepals can be free or united, okay. Likewise petals can be free or united. So when the petals are free, they are called polypetalous, right? Like for the free sepals, the word polysepalous is used. Sepal for sepalous, so polysepalous, and here same thing, polypetalous. So petalous for petal, okay. So polysepalous, polypetalous for the free condition, okay. And if the petals are united, the word gamopetalous will be used, right? Like here we were using gamosepalous in case of calyx. Here the word gamopetalous will be used. See in this diagram, fusion of sepals and petals. So this first flower is representing here you can see these petals are free, okay. So this condition is called polypetalous, okay. You can see these free petals, so these are polypetalous. And see here, these petals are united, okay. These are joined with each other, you can see here. So this condition is called gamopetalous, right? And see here in this flower, these are sepals, right? These you can say this is calyx part. All these sepals are combinedly called calyx. So these sepals are free, right? So this is called polysepalous, and in this condition you can see these sepals are united, right? These are joined together. So this condition is called gamosepalous, right? So this is the condition for the free and united sepals and petals. Next part of flower is androecium, that is male part of the flower. Okay, so androecium is composed of stamen, means stamens are present inside the androecium, which represents the male reproductive organ. So male reproductive organ in the flower is stamen, and the stamen consists of filament and anther, right? So there are two parts in stamen, filament and anther. At the tip of filament, anther is present, right? Each anther is usually bilobe, means two lobes are present here. Bilobes means two lobes divided into two lobes, and each lobe has two chambers. So each lobe out of these two will have two chambers, right? And these two chambers present in each lobe will be called pollen sacs, and inside these pollen sacs pollen grains are produced, right? So pollen grains are produced inside the pollen sac. Now a sterile stamens when in which pollen grains are not produced. A stamen in which pollen grains are not produced and which is not able to reproduce, like which is not able to produce the pollen grains and is not able to germinate on the stigma. So such stamen is called sterile stamen, and it is called staminode. Now you see here, this is the structure of stamen. You can see here this is filament and this is anther. Okay, this is complete a stamen. This is filament and this is anther part, and you can see these two lobes. Okay, these are called two lobes of the anther. So that's why this is called bilobed anther, right? Now in each lobe, you can see here this cross section. Okay, in each lobe you can see here, this is one lobe and this is second lobe, and in each lobe these two sacs you can observe. Okay, so these are called pollen sacs, and inside these pollen sacs pollen grains are produced. When stamens are attached to the petals, they are epipetalous. So here you can see in this flower, this is brinjal flower, and here you can see these are petals. These are these stamens are attached with the petals here. These are not free. Okay, so these are attached with the petals, and this condition is called epipetalous, right? And in second condition, when attached to the perianth. So sometimes stamens get attached with the perianth. What is perianth? I hope you remember, when the sepals and petals are jointed. Okay, so when there is no differentiation between the sepals and petals, that is called perianth. So when the stamens are also attached with those perianth, that condition is called epiphyllous. You see here in the lily flower, I gave you an example of lily flower for the perianth condition also, right? So see here in lily flower, stamens are also attached with the perianth, right? So such condition is called epiphyllous. Now if the stamens in a flower are free, they are called polyandrous. Okay, you see here in this diagram all these free stamens you can see here. Okay, so such condition is called polyandrous when the stamens are free. And when the stamens are united into one bunch or one bundle, they are called monoadelphous. Okay, so when all these stamens, all these free stamens you can see here, when these stamens get united to form a bundle, that condition is called monoadelphous condition. Okay, example in China rose. And when the stamens are united into two bundles, okay, when all the stamens are not making only one bundle, they are united but they are making two separate bundles. That condition is called diadelphous, and that is found in pea, pea flower. Next condition is when the stamens are united in more than two bundles. They are called polyadelphous. So when more than two bundles are formed by the joint stamens, that condition is called polyadelphous, and example is mustard flower. Now you see here the condition monoadelphous. You can see here these are stamens. Okay, this is some part of the anther is free, of the filament is free here, and some part is joined together, right? So only one bundle is formed here. So that this condition is called monoadelphous condition, right? One bundle is formed here by the joining of all the stamens together. Okay, you can see this free part here. These are some part of the filament, and some is joined here, right? Now diadelphous condition, when two bundles are formed, you can see here this one bundle, more stamens are present in this bundle, and this one separate stamen here. Okay, so these two bundles are formed here in case of pea, like this. Okay, so such condition is called diadelphous. Then next condition is polyadelphous. You can see this beautiful condition. Okay, here many separate bundles are formed, more than two bundles are formed by the joining of stamens, right? So such condition is called polyadelphous condition. Now next part of the flower is gynoecium, and gynoecium is the female reproductive part of the flower, right? And is made up of one or more carpels. So carpel is the you can say single unit of the gynoecium, right? There can be one carpel in the gynoecium or more than one carpel. Okay, when one carpel is present, it is called monocarpellary condition, and when more than one carpel, that will be called multicarpellary. You will study in class 12th about that. Now let's see what is this carpel. A carpel consists of three parts, namely stigma, style and ovary. Okay, so you can say this is the unit of the gynoecium, and it has three parts: style, stigma and ovary. Now what is ovary? Ovary is the enlarged basal part. So basal part of the carpel is called ovary, on which lies the elongated tube. So tube like structure on the ovary is called style, and on the tip of style stigma is present, right? The style connects the ovary to the stigma, right? Now the stigma is usually at the tip of style and is the receptive surface for pollen grain. Means the pollen grain, when through the any of the pollinating agent land on the flower, then first of all it land on the stigma. So we can say stigma is the receptive surface for the pollen grain, for the landing of pollen grain. Now each ovary bears one or more ovules. So inside the ovary what is present? Ovules. And these ovules are attached to a flattened cushion-like structure that is called placenta. So how these ovules are attached with the ovary wall? With the help of placenta, and this placenta is flattened and cushion-like, so that it can attach the ovules with ovary. So you can define the placenta from here. Now when more than one carpel is present, they are free, that condition is called apocarpus. Okay, so when in any ovary, if more than one carpels are present and they are in free condition, that condition is called apocarpus. For example, in lotus. And when carpels are fused, they are called syncarpus, right? So when carpels are fused together, condition will be called syncarpus. For example, in tomato. Now after fertilization, how the fertilization will occur? When the pollen grain land on the stigma, it enters through the style and reach to the ovary part, and after that fertilization occur, right? And after the fertilization, what happened with the ovules? Those are present inside the ovary. Those ovules develop into seeds. Okay, so it is how the seeds are produced inside the flowering plant. These seeds are produced after the fertilization, right? And which part is forming these seeds? Ovules. So ovules develop into seed. And what happened with the ovary? ovary matures into a fruit. So as you know, seeds are present inside the fruit, right? Whenever you eat a fruit, inside a seed is present. Okay, so you just imagine the position, the fruit, that fruit is matured ovary, and inside the ovary, because ovules are present, so those ovules have developed into seeds. So inside the fruit, seeds are present. Now based on today's topics, your homework is question number 6, 11 and 15. Now let's discuss the homework solution of previous lecture. Question number 2 of NCERT I gave as homework, and the question is justify the following statements on the basis of external features. So here first statement is underground parts of a plant are not always roots. This statement you need to justify. So in the modification of stems, you study about many examples of stems that where the stems are underground, right? So underground parts are not always roots. Sometimes stems are also underground. Okay, so let's take a recap of that. In a few plants like ginger, you know, in the ginger, modified stem is there to store the food. Okay, so that is underground. Stems remain underground. So in case of ginger, stem remain underground for the vegetative reproduction and storage of food. Similarly, stems in potato remains underground, which are modified stem. Okay, in case of potato also, stems are modified stems to store the food, and those are underground. Now potato tuber indicate the presence of nodes and internodes. How can we say that potato tuber is a stem? It is underground. Then why we are saying that it is stem? It can be a root also. Then how we can say that? Okay, because the potato tuber has nodes and internodes, and you know nodes and internodes are always present on the stems. These cannot be present on the roots. That's why we are saying that potato tuber is a stem. It's not a root. Okay, so buds and nodes and internodes are present on the potato tuber, and presence of these apical buds and nodes and internodes shows that potato tuber is a stem, right? Now hence these examples show that underground parts are not always roots, right? So you can give example of ginger and potato here. Second statement of the same question that you need to justify is the flower is a modified shoot. So the answer is apical meristems give rise to floral meristem. You know where the apical meristems are present? These are present at the apex of the stem, right? So apex of the stem, the meristematic cells are present there, and that part give rise to the floral meristem. How that floral meristem is formed on the from the apical meristem? The excess of the stem get condensed. Condensed means here the cells lie close to each other, while internodes lie nearer to each other. Okay, so this is the difference here. Whenever any apical meristem, means whenever any stem part give rise to a floral meristem, at that time what happened? Internodes lie nearer to each other. You know, nodes and internodes are present on the stem. So here the internodes comes closer to each other. Okay, and that apical, at that point apical meristem converts into a floral meristem. Now because of this, floral appendages rise in place of stems, right? So when the internodes lie nearer to each other, that floral meristem is formed and floral appendages will be formed in place of stem. This justifies that flower is a modified shoot. Now next is the answer for the question number 3 of NCERT, and the question is differentiate pinnately compound and palmately compound leaf. So both are type of compound leaf, and you know what is the compound leaf? When the margin, when the incisions touch the midrib. Okay, so many leaflets are formed here. So let's differentiate the two types of the compound leaf. First is pinnately compound, in which many numbers of leaflets are present on a common axis, and that common axis is called rachis. Okay, so number of leaflets are present on the rachis here. In palmately compound leaf, several leaflets are attached to a common point. I hope you remember the diagram also. So here leaflets are present on a common point. Now pinnately compound leaflets are attached to the common axis called rachis, and here the leaflets are attached to a common point on the leaf stalk. So here that is called leaf stalk. Next is a leaflet bearing axis is the continuation of petiole. So leaflet bearing axis, that axis on which leaflets are present in the continuation of petiole, and here the leaflet bearing axis is very short. Example of pinnately compound leaf is neem leaves, and of palmately compound leaf is cotton leaves. Now this is the answer for question number 12 of NCERT. How do the various leaf modifications help plants? So this is the direct question. We have discussed it in a previous lecture also. So let's take a fast recap. The answer is leaves fundamentally perform the photosynthesis. So main function of the leaves is photosynthesis, but in some plants leaves are modified to carry out different functions, and these are like in some tendrils are present leaf modifications. Tendrils help for the climbing, as in case of peas. In some, leaves are modified to form the spines which help in protection. Okay, thorns are modified leaves which will protect the plant from grazing animals, serving as an organ of defense. Now next is for getting nitrogen. Leaves of some plants like leaves of the pitcher plant are modified into pitcher-like structure containing digestive juices, aiding in trapping and digesting insect. So these leaves are modified to capture the insects. Then in some, leaves are modified for the synthesis of food, like fleshy leaves of garlic and onion store some food. Okay, these are modified leaves. Phyllodes emerging from the petioles of leaves synthesize food, and phyllodes are flattened green structures that replace the short-lived leaves.